Hello, hello everyone. Please confirm if you can hear me. Hello everyone. Can you guys confirm me if you can hear me well? You can confirm through the chat. Okay, great. Welcome everyone to our live question and answer session of the month of February. We are happy to hear. We have happy to hear your feedback about our efforts so far, and we will be taking up your questions. Let's get started with your questions first. First of all, I will also mention something about the session today, that we will be announcing some good information about the skilled migration updates with respect to this year, as this year is going to close in like a couple of months, and then obviously the new financial year is going to start next year from August onward. And there are some important things for the people who have been invited and for the people who are still waiting for the invite. So we will be talking about a few important bits at the end of the session. So stay tuned till the end of the session to get the useful information. So let's start taking up your questions. I will request you all that to keep your questions precise and to the point, so that everyone can be entertained, everyone can be answered. So let's take up the first question from Irfan Ahmed. And the question is that I have applied in ROI in South Australia on 8th of January 2024 as a construction project manager in defense industries as an offshore candidate. How much time they will take to process my application? So, Irfan, so you have already submitted an ROI for South Australia. I'm not sure have you been invited or not yet. But for South Australia, if you're working in defense sector, and they obviously they are prioritizing the defense sector, if you have been pre-invited by them through your ROI, then you are going to get your grant as per the global processing time of the visa. But if you are asking about the chance of getting an invite or the time it will take to get an invite, so obviously you will have to wait for that, because the South Australia hasn't conducted yet any highly skilled and talented stream invitation rounds. So we will keep monitoring their invitation rounds, and we will let you know in our group about the possibility of getting an invite soon for your ROI. So let's take up the next one. This is from Anandapriya. The question is that, hi sir, we have applied for university lecturer in 491 visa to South Australia with 80 points. How much is the chance of invite, and how much points needed to get invite? Anand Priya, the point is that the university lecturer is obviously a good occupation to have, but recently we have seen that this occupation is not being invited a lot by most of the states. So if you have 80 points for 491, I believe that your chances are not very high, because of the priority of the other occupations such as the school teachers or education or social workers. So you will have to wait for the next financial year, in my opinion, with 80 points. But if you can improve your points for 491 over and above 90, then it can have better chances. So try your best to improve it at least 10 points for better chances. But you should wait till the next financial year. So the next question is from Love, that hello sir, I have submitted 491 application in March 2023 and status is still received, offshore expected grant date. So you can, I think for 491, currently their global processing time is showing around 18 months for 90% of the applications, but it depends upon your occupation as well. So if you belong to one of the non-priority occupations, so you should expect a grant in like 1 month or so. For like you can expect in March with a 12 months period. For 491, they are trying to prioritize. The department is working on prioritizing the regional visas, including both employer sponsored and the state sponsored ones. So I believe the overall processing time of 491 is going to improve in coming days. So you can expect in March or max in April. That's my opinion. Let's take up the next one is from Ravi Kapoor. The question is that, hello sir, lodge 491 visa in July 23. When to expect grant? So as I mentioned, currently the possibility of getting a grant for 491 visa is still should be expected in 12 months, not before that. If your occupation is a high priority occupation, then you can expect in even 3 or 4 months. But other than that, you shouldn't expect any outcome of the visa grant before 12 months. So let's move to the next one. This is from Aurangzeb Alam. The question is that, how long does it take to update passport details on IMI portal? Aurangzeb, so if you have already lodged your visa and you have just updated your passport details in your IMI account, you do not need to worry about anything. You can be assured that once the case officer will be assigned to your visa application, they will be granting the visa with respect to your new passport number. So you have already done what you had to do. So you just need to wait for the grant, and the grant will be linked to your new passport number. The next one is from Learn with M. The question is that, sir, please explain QLD priority processing. So yes, this is a good question. So I think yesterday and day before yesterday, a few of the people who are living in Queensland have received an email with respect to the Queensland. The title of the email was about the registration for priority processing for Queensland 491 visa. So for this perspective, you need to understand that they are just asking for a registration of details. So if you are interested for priority processing, in case you will be invited, you can give them the details. It doesn't mean that it's not like an ROI. It's just asking for the details that if a candidate will be invited, will they be interested in priority processing of their 491 visa or not? So you just need to mention your details in their registration process, and it's not going to impact anything else. It's not going to increase any chances. It's just a preference for the onshore people who are working or living in Queensland, that they will be given a priority processing for their 491 visa application. So if you are interested for 491 visa applications while living in Queensland, you can just register your details with the link provided in that email. Let's take up the next one. This is from IM. The question is that, is there a chance to get an invite for technician occupations this year? I am sitting at 85 for 189, 90 points for 190, and electrical engineering technician, superior English, 10 years experience offshore. So electrical engineering technician is a good occupation. I believe that the technicians are mostly invited by Western Australia this year, and some of them were invited by New South Wales. So your chances are good for sure for 190 at 90 points. Maybe you can think about also submitting an EOI for Western Australia for 491 at 100 points, and that will for sure increase your chances. And now this year is going to close in like a couple of months, so you need to think about whether you can wait for the next year or not. Otherwise, you can lodge your EOI for Western Australia for 491. That will definitely improve your chances for an invite from Western Australia for your technician occupation. So let's take up the next one. This is from Rubena Akmal. The question is that, the chances of my husband's pharmacy technician assessment with B farm and 6 years of running on company onshore. So Rubena Akmal, the point is that you need to get your husband needs to get the skills assessment done for pharmacy technician based on the self-employment case. The B farm degree is good to go because it's a highly relevant field of study. But for the 6 years of on pharmacy, which is onshore, as you have mentioned, you need to submit the documents. Your husband needs to submit the documents of self-employment, which includes business registration documents and the taxation documents, attorney or legal documents with respect to the business, client invoices, and the bank statement with respect to the business account. So such documents will be provided for self-employment case, and it can be given the positive assessment for the work employment of 6 years. But B farm, on the basis of B pharmacy, to get the skills assessment for the education is totally good to go. That's not a big deal. So let's take up the next one. This is from Travel with Toheed. The question is there, sir, I have applied with 190 and 491 visa grant. If I get 190 before 491, then how to withdraw 491. So it's very simple, Toheed. If you have already lodged a 491 visa and you get an invite for 190 from another state or in any circumstances, you can also lodge the 190 visa, and on the IMI account itself, you can withdraw your existing 491 visa application. And it takes a while. It doesn't withdraw like quickly. So it takes a while, like a month or so, to get withdrawn, and ultimately you receive an email from department that your visa has been withdrawn, and then your 190 visa keeps continued. So let's take up the next one. This one is from Saqib Mahmood. He's asking that I am planning to apply for RPL. Shall I wait for new rules to be applied, or shall I apply now? So Saqib, ACS has recently announced about the new rules which they are going to implement from 19th of March. That is the cutoff date for the new applications. Now, the new ACS rule is all about it, so it depends upon your intent. So if you have a clear if you have a clear case of your occupation and you have all the documents with respect to RPL application, you can even submit today. But if you think that you want to get the facility of the new rules, which ACS has announced that they are going to entertain up to three ENSCO codes together related to ICT occupation together in single application, but obviously they are going to increase their fees as well. So you need to understand whether you are good to go with your existing one single occupations application, or you can wait till 18th of March to apply for the new rules to select three occupations in your case. So that's the major difference, and obviously they are going to improve their systems. But the criteria of getting the skills assessment from ACS will remain the same, and that is all about having the relevant work experience with a relevant field of study in case of trying for the minimum years of deduction. But through RPL, in your case, you will need 5 to 6 years of experience for positive skills assessment, and only in the case of the new rules you will be able to get or apply for three ENSCO ICT ENSCO occupations together. So it's up to you. It's a good decision if you want to wait, because they are going to smooth line their process. So let's take up the next one. This is from Praneeth. The question is, what are the chances for civil engineer with 90 points for 491? Praneeth, so civil engineer is a very competitive occupation. To be honest, the chances of invite for civil engineers at 90 points for 491 are, I will not say that these are very like medium level chances. It's better than average medium level chances, but to be honest, there are a lot of civil engineers. If you see the EOI dashboard data, you will see that thousands of civil engineer EOIs are waiting for their invite even at 90 or 95 points for 491. So to beat that competition, either you have high work experience points related. If someone else has 90 points with lower work experience points, then you get a chance. Otherwise, you need to you have to try to reach up to 95 points for 491 for a good chance of civil engineer. So let's take up the next one. This is from Rubena. Chances of 190 in Victoria for retail pharmacist with 85 points onshore, uh, power couple with no job. Okay. So Victoria has a very specific criteria to select the ROIs. So if you have already submitted your Victoria ROI at 95, at 85 points for retail pharmacist, being on an onshore applicant, now the chances of invite will not only depend upon your total ROI or EOI points or your occupation, or also on your other set of criteria. It will also depend upon your annual earnings. So for onshore applicants, it is very essential and it is necessary to have higher annual earnings if you are working in any occupation which is related to skill level 1, 2, or 3. For for Victoria, they are giving importance to annual earnings. So you need to be working in skilled job in Victoria to be eligible for better chances of invite, even at 85 points for retail pharmacist. Because without any job, you will be mentioning $0 in your ROI, and that will actually deprioritize your ROI in comparison to the ones who have higher annual earnings. So you need to think about this, that the skilled employment in any occupation or related field is very important to have for both you and your husband. Let's take up the next one is from Aaron. Aaron is asking, I am lodging my 190 visa application now. I have a de facto partner. What should I upload? Evidence of family unit? Should this be the same with the documents to prove de facto relationship in that is social financial commitment? Yes. So the best thing is that if you have any joint bank account, the bank statement of such bank account will work. Similarly, if you have any documents, any lease agreements, or any legal or official documents which can prove that you have been living together as a de facto in a de facto relationship, uh, those documents will work. The social media pictures and as you have mentioned, the commitments will are not strong evidence. These are supporting evidence. The strongest evidence are lease agreements and bank statement for joint accounts, and any other investments or any other financial instruments or financial accounts or statements where your both names are mentioned with the same address. So they need to see that you guys are living together as a defect in a de facto relationship. So for that, the best documents are lease agreement and financial documents, and the supporting documents can be social and commitment stuff. So let's take up the next one is from Nakul Narwal. The question is that, hi, please shed some light on NSW 491 used seats because they jumped from 295 to 978 within 1 month. That too when pathway 1 opened on January 25 and last 491 round was on 19th December. So Nakul, actually what happened is that in the month of December, when they published the data of the nominations used for each state, they published the data of NSW from, as you have mentioned, from 295, and in the month of January, when they updated the data till the end of January, they mentioned 978, 491's allocations or nominations already used. So it's natural because they updated the data late. There were a lot of invitation rounds which happened in previous months, prior to January, and those pre-invites were converted into final invites through nomination applications in these months, in December or January. Those allocations were used till the end of January, as shown as 978, which you have mentioned. Now, even this number is not as updated as we can say, because a lot of people would have lodged their nomination applications for NSW 491 later at the end of January and also in the month of February. Those numbers will also be added up into the 978, and ultimately, if you know about the total allocations from for New South Wales for 491, you will see the difference that how much allocations are now actually left. I will say that still for NSW and for Victoria, they are the two states which had the highest or the biggest allocation quota for this year, and I believe that still around 25 to 30% real pre-invites allocations are still balanced, for which for the round for which the rounds can happen in the month of February, March, and April. So you can expect such numbers, because this 978 is not like real time up to date, but it can be used as a good indication. So let's take up the next one is from Sandeep. Sandeep is asking, um, so, sir, I know my course is not in priority, but when it's about chances, do you reckon taxation account will be good enough to get 491 visa, or you reckon me to do skills assessment of management? I think you are asking about management accountant. So, Sandeep, yes, management consultant or management accountant, both management accountant is better than taxation accountant. But if you can get your skills assessment done as accountant general or external auditor, that would be a better option to go for. Taxation accountants were invited by Western Australia in this year in their first invitation round, but obviously the onshore applicants were prioritized for the accountant applicants, specifically talking about the taxation accountant. But the accountant general and the external auditors of offshore applicants were also invited throughout this year by different states, but obviously at higher points. And when we talk about 491, you should have at least 95 points. When we talk about 190, you should have at least 85 points for good chances for these occupations. So let's take up the next one. It's from Hasnan Nadeem. The question is that 85 points for civil design draftsman occupation living in NSW, when to expect invite. I'm not sure. Have you? You didn't mention about the visa supply for which you have calculated your 85 points. If you're talking about 190, then obviously you have great chances to be invited as civil design draftsperson at 85 points. But if you are saying this as for at 491 for 491 these 85 points, then the chances are not that high. So this is what I can say. But obviously your occupation is good. But another thing is that for NSW they are inviting obviously the infrastructure sector applicants, which include civil design draftsperson. But you can also submit an EOI for 491 for Western Australia in next financial year when they reopen, because they allow interstate applicants. So let's take up the next one. This is from Vinod Chaudhary. The question is that, hello sir, any chance of pre-invite 190 visa for ICT project manager offshore with 90 points in Victoria and an NSW having superior English, or can I try with 491? ICT project manager is a good occupation. It's not as good as software engineer or developer programmer or ICT business analyst or ICT support engineer or ICT security specialist, but it's still a good occupation within the ICT sector. You have great points. You have got great points, 90 points with, and you are trying for 190 for Victoria and NSW. I believe that you should stick to 190 for specifically talking about Victoria. For NSW, if you want, you can submit another EOI for 491 for at 100 points. But I believe that you should wait for a while before making this decision of submitting another EOI for 491 for NSW. So far, your profile looks good. So let's take up the next one. It's from Ahmad Akram. I have 75 points right now. My age will be 25 in 6 months. Should I wait for my 25th birthday or apply for the EOI after skills assessment, and will my extra 5 points be updated automatically? It's very simple, Ahmad. You can, once your skills assessment is done, your English language test is done, you can simply submit your EOI and keep. And obviously, you will be mentioning your date of birth, so your EOI will be updated automatically once your age points are updated. So you do not need to update it again. You can simply submit your EOI and it will be automatically updated. So let's take up the next one. It's from Sami Sumi. The question is that if there is skilled employment assessed by the assessing authority and it came positive, the DHA will still scrutinize the documents in the visa application. Well, Sami Sumi, that's not mandatory that they will be doing it, but they do it on audit or random basis. So we have seen the cases in this year that even Department of Home Affairs is scrutinizing the employment documents even after getting positive skills assessment from the relevant assessing authority. Now, why they are doing it, it's up to them. Obviously, we cannot ask this question that why you are doing that. They have the right to verify the employment even after it has been verified by the assessing authority. So yes, they do, but not for all the applications. They do on random basis for certain cases, for certain countries, and it can happen. So let's take up the next one. It's from Usman Khan. The question is that I have 70 points without including state points. What are the chances for 491 190 in cafe and restaurant manager? So Usman, the cafe and restaurant manager is a very good occupation, to be honest. Specifically, when we talk about the states which are prioritizing hospitality and tourism industry, and we are talking about Victoria and Western Australia, I think you should submit one ROI for Victoria 491 at 70 plus 15 points. And for Western Australia, you should submit both EOIs for 491 and 190. But for Western Australia, if you can secure a job offer from Western Australia, only then you should think about submitting a 190 for Western Australia. And for NSW also, you should submit 491. The chances of invite at 70 plus 5 points for 190 are wouldn't be high. I wouldn't say that you should go for that. I think you have better chances as 491 and 70 plus 15 points from NSW, from Victoria, and from Western Australia. And maybe you can think about submitting an EOI for Queensland as well for your occupation. It's a good occupation to have, specifically talking about Victoria. Go for it. Let's take up the next one. This is from Bipin Matthew. The question is that, hello, sir. I have submitted 491 application. I saw visa outcome until June applicants. When will they start 2023-24 invited non-priority applicants? I applied in November 23. So, Bipin, yes, there have been certain cases where they have reached until the last year's June cases. But most of them are either priority occupations or some lucky occupations or applicants also got granted who lodged their visa applications in the month of June 2023. But there are still a lot of people, a lot of applications who applied in the month of April, May, or June, who have no idea when they will be getting a grant. So I think for the next year's visa applications, as you have applied in the month of November, you should still stay hopeful to get in 12 months if you are talking about a non-priority occupation, specifically when we say 491. But it is expected that the global processing time specifically for 491 is going to improve in coming months, because in the year of 2023-24, the number of allocations and obviously the invitations were lower, and hence the backlog of visa applications in their department or with visa case officers would reduce, and ultimately the processing times will be going to improve in coming months. So once the backlog of previous financial year is cleared, the next year's processing will be faster. So but still you shouldn't expect a grant before 12 months. Let's take up the next one. It's from Praneeth. What are the chances of electrical engineer with 90 points for 491? So again, as I mentioned earlier about the chances of civil engineer for 491, same goes for electrical engineers. After civil engineer, electrical engineers are also a highly competitive occupation. Good chances of invite for electrical engineer for 491 will start from 95 points. So it depends upon state to state as well. So if you're talking about NSW, they are prioritizing electrical engineers. If you're talking about Western Australia, obviously they are prioritizing civil engineers or building and construction industry more. So you should stay hopeful, but try to improve at least 5 points for better chances. So let's take up the next one. This is from Gissup. Gissup is asking, after final invitation to apply and before visa lodge, can someone change their job in a different occupation? I have completed 5 years of skilled employment before final invite. Yes, you can change, but it's always better. It's all if you're talking about after the final invite, so your points have been logged already. For all of the criteria, including the employment criteria. So once you have got the final invite to apply for the visa, you can switch your job or you can change your employer. You can also change your job position or title because your points have been low till that point. But the important thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, that the Department of Home Affairs can verify your employment by contacting your earlier employer if you have already changed. In that case, you just need to communicate to your employer's referee, whoever you have mentioned in your reference letter, that in case of a contact from Department of Home Affairs during the visa application, they should verify or they should confirm your employment with that company. So just make sure, other than that, there is no issue in changing the job after getting the final invite. Now let's take up the next one is from Ahmad. The question is that with 80 points in management consulting, okay for 189, what are the chances, or should I apply for business analyst 190 at 80 points before state points? If you are asking about the ICT business analyst, that is a better occupation. There is no occupation that is called simple business analyst. You need to confirm that. You can also ask this question in our group. But when we talk about management consultant, now the management consultant is a good occupation to have, and your points are 80 for 189, and it's a good case. I think you should stay hopeful, but for 189, obviously they haven't invited any other occupation than the priority ones, the education and the healthcare ones, in their last and only single 189 round, which happened in this year in December. There could be another round of 189 in this year, and maybe it can happen in May or April. But you should stay hopeful from states for management consultant case rather than from 189. So your points are good. That is 80 plus 5 points for 190 case. But management consultant is a good occupation, but the business analyst one, I'm not sure for which business analyst you are talking about. If you're asking about the ICT business analyst, obviously it is a very good occupation, but within the ICT sector. Now let's take up the next one. It's from Aiza Arif. The question is that, hello, sir, recreation officer, 90 points for 491. So recreation officer this occupation was invited in last financial year by Western Australia and by Victoria, but for this year it hasn't been invited much. So your points are good for sure, and you should stay hopeful with those points, but it can take time. So if you have if I'm not sure what's your points breakdown, but if you can improve your points by 5, and then you can apply for Victoria for 91 in your EOR ROI, and also apply for Western Australia and NSW. These states can there could be a possibility of invite for recreation officer for these states at 95 points for 491. So that would be a good case. So good luck for that. So now let's take up the next one. This is from Travel with Tawheed. Sir, can I claim experience point while I am on study leave from my job with full salary and also claim Australia study 5 points at the same time? Uh, if you are saying that you are onshore and you, while being onshore on a work visa, then you can claim the work experience points if your work, if your employment is continued during that period with full pay and full working hours. If your employer can support you in that purpose, then only you can claim those period of time, but it's not advisable, to be honest. So while you were studying, you were, you had taken a leave from your job, so you were not working full time with that job, obviously. So during your study, you should claim only 5 points of Australian study requirement after completing your study for at least 92 weeks of because registered study. And during that period, you were not working with that employment, you were on break from that employment. So ethically, you should not claim both points. You were on break, you should show that as an unemployment break, unemployment period. And for the Australian study requirement, you can claim 5 points. Now let's take up the next one, which is Abdul Hadi. Do you think RDAs of NSW will open? Agricultural consultant with 90 points for 190. Can you give me an overall idea about the prospect and possibility of the occupation? So NSW, when they opened, when they started this year allocation program, they mentioned that agriculture is one of their priority target sector along with other four. But so far, we haven't seen much invites from NSW for this occupation, to be honest. So if your occupation is for sure very good, the agricultural consultant, and your points for 190 are also very good, very good. But they have this occupation hasn't been invited much by most of the states. We saw a few invites from Victoria, but NSW hasn't shown much interest in issuing the pre-invites for this occupation. So your other question is about the RDA. So regarding RDA, I think this is for everyone's benefit that NSW didn't resume their RDA program this year. They may open it for in next year, but all depends upon their total allocations. They started their NSW 491 Pathway 1, which is all about the onshore applicants who are working in regional NSW with regional based employers since past 12 months with more than $70,000 annual pay. But they didn't offer it to for offshore applicants this year. So they think, and also the people who were invited who were from RDA last year, they are now getting the grants. So for in my opinion, the RDA for NSW for offshore can open in next year, not in this year. Let's take up the next one. It is from Muhammad Fayaz. The question is that, hi sir, applied for 190, status is received, applied on 1st of May 2023, but now my wife conceived. Should I modify the application? Please guide me. Yes. So the question is that since so you applied in May 2023, and most probably you are going to get your grant in like April or May 2023. 2024, sorry. So now you are talking about change of circumstances, and now this change of circumstances can be mentioned to Department of Home Affairs, but it's optional. Since as per the rules, you just need to provide the details of the newborn baby in case the baby is born during the visa application process. But regarding the conceive case, it's optional. You can give this as an advance information through your MA account, but it doesn't matter, because if you have already gone through all the medical examination of your wife must have been gone through all the medical examination requirements, and those have must have been sorted out. So now you just need to wait for your grant, and once the baby is born, you need to apply for the visa of the baby through your MA account as either subsequent entrant or a child visa. So other than that, the change of circumstances is the main purpose of the change of circumstances is actually to add a newborn baby once it's once the baby is born. So before that, it's optional to communicate. So now let's take up the next one. Is from Dr. Asma Khurshid. Assalamu alaikum. Kindly guide about university lecturer occupation selection criteria points threshold. So Asma, so as I mentioned earlier, that for university lecturer, it's a good occupation to have because it's related to education sector, but it's not uh, part of the school teaching occupations, school teaching education sector. So for university lecturer, if you have more than 80 points, I am talking about 85 or 90 points for 190 and more than 90 points, that is 95 or 100 points for 491, then you should be hopeful. Below these points, it will be difficult because university lecturers are not getting invited in, as evident in from this year's invitation round. So I believe that you should have higher points, and you should wait for another year. Maybe next year it will be better for university lecturers, because the last financial year many university lecturers were invited, but this year it has been slow for university lecturers. So good luck for that. So let's take up the next one. It's from Aurangzeb Alam. The question is that the for 491 visa, what is minimum number of weekly hours required to be eligible for PR after 3 years? Okay, so for if you are asking about applying for 191 PR visa application after 3 years, after completing your 3 financial years tax return statements, which is also called Australian Tax Office Statements (ATO) office. So for that, you just need to fulfill the visa conditions. Now, your visa conditions state that you can work in any occupation for sure, any skill level 1, 2, or 3 occupation, and there is no minimum hours or minimum income threshold requirement to do so. You just need to work in a full-time skilled occupation. If you are working in an odd job or a skill level 4 or 5 job, then you are not eligible for 191 visa application after 3 years of financial income tax statements. So at least you should have a mind that you have to work for 3 years on a skilled level 1, 2, or 3 job to be eligible for 191 PR. There is no minimum income or minimum hours requirement. Now let's take up the next one. Is from Ahmad Akram, and the question is about that I have total 3 years of experience. Can I apply for 2 different occupations for skill assessment at the same time? Can I tailor my experience letter according to occupation without a problem? Yes, you can apply for 2 occupations at the same time, but obviously it depends upon your assessing authority. Not all the assessing authorities allow an applicant to have multiple occupations. For example, ACS allows to have multiple occupations assessed at the same time. You will get multiple skills assessment occupations outcome letters. Similarly, you can get multiple skills assessed from the CAANZ or IPA or CPA as well for the accounting professionals. But for the occupations such as vet assess, you need to replace your existing occupation. You cannot apply for double occupations together for skills assessment. So it depends upon your assessing authority. But if the assessing authority allows, then obviously you can have multiple occupations, multiple outcome letters, and you can apply for EOI from both for the states which allow multiple EOIs or ROIs. So now let's take up the next one. Is from R. Jaswal. R. Jaswal is asking, retail pharmacist 75 points, what is chance? So I think there are a lot of retail pharmacists in our group, and we get a lot of queries about retail pharmacists' chances. So let's take up this subject as for everyone's knowledge. Similar to university lecturer who were invited in last financial year, a lot of university lecturers were being invited at 75 or 80 or 85 points for 190. But this year it has been slowed down. And the same happened with the pharmacist. I'm talking about retail, hospital, industrial, and pharmacy technician, all 4 occupations of pharmacist. Now, this occupation is good, but the chances of invite all depends upon your total EOI points. We have seen that in this year that NSW has invited retail pharmacists at 90 or 95 points when we talk about the offshore applicants. But other than that, we haven't seen much of the invites from different states for retail pharmacists. So for at 75 points, if you're talking about 75 base points, and you can go up to maybe 90 points for 491, then you can have the chance. But other than that, I believe that the chances would be low at 75 points if it includes the state points. So for retail pharmacists, the good chances of invite start from 90 points for 491 and 80 points for 190. I am talking about offshore applicants. For onshore applicants, it also depends upon the other factors. For example, in the case of ROI, the annual earnings matter. For the NSW, the current employment matters. So for offshore applicants, 90 and 80 are good points threshold for retail pharmacists for 491 and 190 respectively. So now let's take up the next one. It's from Shiva P for business visa. What's the requirement? So Shiva, as the Department of Home Affairs announced their new migration strategy in the month of December, they are going to revamp their business and investment visa, and we also called it BIIP program. They are going to replace it, and also they are going to change the global talent visa, and they are coming up with a new visa type. So right now, to be honest, Australia is not encouraging any business visa applicants because they think that they are not looking for any foreign investors in their country. They don't have any issue with the investment. They have the issue with their migration program and the population and the housing crisis. So right now, the business visas are not being encouraged. So better to go for the skilled migration visas or work visas or employer sponsored visas or other categories. But for the business visa, it's not a good road to follow. So let's take up the next one. Is from Nabil Akram. The question is that will QLD open its priority list for 190? What are the chances this FY for 189, 190 with 75 and 85 points respectively, including state points for 190, asking for QLD. So Nabil, the chances are for sure good at 85 points for 190. If you have if you have 85 points for 190, then obviously the chances are good. But it depends upon your occupation. So if you are an onshore applicant of Queensland, and you must have also received that email from Queensland regarding the registration of details. So you can also think about that whether you want to go for 491 priority processing of Queensland or not. Otherwise, stay hopeful for 190 at 85 points. It depends upon your occupation for sure. But Queensland has a very limited allocations quota. That's why their invites and their rounds have always been very slow and very short as compared to New South Wales and Victoria. So stay hopeful, keep working in Queensland. I think if not this year, then next year you will be getting a pre-invite from Queensland. And they will be opening their priority list for 190 soon, maybe for maybe for next financial year. So let's take up the next one. Is from Ahmad Akram. And the question is that if skills assessment is refused, when can I reapply same occupation, and can I change occupation assessment body for new skills assessment? Okay. So Ahmad, I'm not sure which assessing authority you are talking about, but if you are talking about wet assess, they allow reassessment cases. So you can apply for reassessment in case of if you think that you can provide any additional evidence or documentary evidence to reclaim your work experience or a qualification. But if you think that they have assessed your application perfectly fine, then you need to submit or find another assessing authority for related to your occupation for which you can apply your skills assessment application. Now it depends upon your occupation, it depends upon the assessing authority. If you have got a negative outcome from one assessing authority, obviously you can go to another assessing authority with a new fresh application, but it all depends upon your occupation's eligibility with the new assessing authority. But yes, you can apply straight away if you're talking about changing the assessing authority for your skills assessment case. So now let's take up the next one. Is from Ramesh Kumar, and he's asking that I live in okay, you are living in Victoria. So do I have to move to a regional area to be eligible for 491 Victoria? Yes. So Victoria has a very straightaway rule that to be eligible for their 491 ROI as an onshore applicant, you should be living in the regional area of Victoria. You cannot be living in any of the postcodes which are not regional area of Victoria for 491 ROI. And similarly for 190, you can submit an ROI if you are living in anywhere in Victoria. For next question is from Ashfaq Ahmed, and it is about hi, TB result came positive, but my X-ray was normal. So I received this letter from BUPA, and they said that no further action required. Will it gonna affect my visa? No. So if BUPA has already cleared your medical examination after getting further testing done, then it's good to go, and it will not affect your visa, because they first check the initial results of your medical, and then they ask for additional medication or an additional test, and once that's done and they give you a clearance letter, then it's good to go for your visa application. Now let's take the next one, and it's from Toheed. So he's asking that my younger sister, age 31, MBBS doctor offshore, please suggest a best pathway for her to get PR. Okay. So now, Toheed, you need to understand that the healthcare occupations are high priority occupations in Australia, and they are getting invited for 189, 190, 491, all at very low points. I'm talking about 65, 70, 75 points they are getting invited. But it's skills assessment of healthcare occupations. For example, when we talk about the MBBS doctor, they are going to become general practitioner in Australia. For GPs, the skills assessment process is very difficult, because they have to get themselves registered with the medical board of Australia, and for the AHPRA registration, that can involve a training period and then provisional to final registration process. So we have already shared a post about skills assessment for doctors in our group. So if you can also find that post by just mentioning about the skills assessment process doctor, you can find it by using these keywords in our group, and you will find a complete post where we have given the stepwise process that how to get skills assessment as a doctor if you want to move to Australia on a skilled migration visa. So you can follow that post, and you can study all the details and all the links provided for getting skills assessment done based on your sister's MBBS degree. You can also ask this question in our group if you do not able to find the post. So now let's take up the next one. It's from, okay, the question is that for 491 visa application and electrical engineer occupation, are there any chances for early visa approval, or it will take at least a year? I lodged visa in November 23 for. So electrical engineer is not a priority occupation when we compare it to healthcare, education, or social services. So obviously you should expect in 12 months, not before that. If you're asking about 491, currently the global processing time indicates that it takes 18 months on average for 90% of the applications, but it's going to get improved, as I already mentioned. So you should expect in 12 months. So now let's take up the next one. Is from Dr. Asma Khurshid. The question is that the chances of selection under university lecturer occupation this year. I think I have already replied to you about the university lecturers chances. So keep tap about that answer. So now let's take up the next one. Is from Gufran Ahmad. Can an accountant claim 5 points if the partner has completed masters in human resources? So for the partner skills assessment, we have already uploaded a complete video of guidance in our YouTube library. You can go to our YouTube library and you can see that how to claim partner points. So to claim 5 points from partner, in addition to the English language competency 5 points, you need to get your partner's skills assessment done. Without that, it's not possible to claim 5 points. So the next question is from Nakul, and it's about should we go with VETSS deemed skill date in every state, or can we claim actual years in some states? So the rule is that for all the states, you need to follow the assessing authorities advised deemed skilled date. When we talk about VETSS, they have a they clearly mention on your outcome letter that when were you deemed skilled. So you need to follow the same date for all the states. When we talk about the Canberra metrics for the capital territory, you can mention your whole of your experience in the Canberra metrics, which is post your relevant qualification. But for the EOIs of all the other states, you need to follow the skills assessment authorities outcome letters advice. Now let's take up the next one. It's from Sakib Ali. The question is that offshore mechanical engineer, superior English, single, 6 years experience, having 90 points for 189 and 95 points for 190. Can I expect 189 or 190? Victoria NSW invite in next 2 to 4 months. Yes, you can expect for mechanical engineers, maybe from NSW in next 2 to 4 months, if you are asking about for 190 at 95 points. But I would suggest you to also submit an EY for 190 for Queensland with 95 points, and that should add a lot of chances for your case. Now let's take up the next one. Is from Lakshan. The question is that I applied for 491 with 70 points including state points. Occupation is systems analyst. Is there any chance to get re-invited in the 23-24 year? So 491 with 70 points, including state points, I am not sure for systems analyst, because although the occupation is good and it's part of the ICT industry, but the points are not good, to be honest. You need to have at least 90 points for 491 for systems analyst to be able to expect good chances of invite in 23-24. Otherwise, the chances are very low, to be honest. Now let's take up the next one is from Awais Zafar. The question is that, hi, how university affects the ACS assessment? My assessment was assessed as diploma, while I have done BSCS 16 years of education. Awais, it's a very good question. Yes, Australia has their own criteria of assessing the education of overseas applicants. So they have their own list of universities which are available if with each of the assessing authorities. So when we are talking about your occupation, so ACS has its own list of recognized universities from which they select which of them can be considered equivalent to their AQF bachelor degree or higher. So for the equivalency of AQF, it doesn't need to be only the course duration or the subjects, but it also depends upon the university and the country from where you are studying. So yes, it does affect that some of the universities, if you have done BSCS 16 years of education from, let's suppose, one university A, you might be getting AQF bachelor degree from in your ACS outcome. But if you are getting it from another university which is not as per their standards, as per their list of recognized universities from a country, then obviously they can downgrade the AQF equivalency from bachelor to diploma. That is totally possible, and that is I would not say I don't. Obviously, if you ask me, I do not support this for sure, because they have their own criteria. We cannot say anything. Obviously, you have a right to appeal, but the chances are low that you will get your diploma converted into bachelor in your ACS assessment outcome, because of their strict rules regarding the country of education and the university of education. So having said that, let's move to the next one, and it's from Shafayat Kabir. So Shafayat is asking, I worked in renowned pharmaceutical company for over 9 years and got a positive skills assessment from where it says quality assurance manager in healthcare sector, a priority occupation. Okay, so quality assurance manager is itself not a priority occupation. You have worked in a pharmaceutical company which can be considered as part of the healthcare sector, but quality assurance manager is more of a generic occupational group. So for the quality assurance manager, it's a good occupation to have, but it cannot be considered a priority occupation when we see the priority occupations list with respect to healthcare education sectors. But quality assurance manager itself is a good occupation, and the chances of invite are good if you have more than 90 points for 491 and more than 80 points for 190 on average. So let's take up the next one. It's from Khan. The question is that, is it possible to include income in Victoria EOI of casual jobs like Uber or restaurant with permanent job income? No. If you're talking about the casual jobs, still in if you there. So there are two things. So you are working, for example, in a proper skill level 1, 2, or 3 job in any occupation. That is fine, even if it is casual job. But since you are working as casual, working with Uber or restaurant, that's not allowed to be included in your ROI's annual earnings, because it's not a skill level 1, 2, or 3 job. It's below skill level 4 job. You cannot include its earning in your ROI. You have to include only the earnings of skill level 1, 2, or 3 in your Victoria's ROI. So now let's take up the next one from Khan again. An internship will be counted for experience in an Australian company if it's unpaid and 3 to 5 days per week. No, internship you cannot include in your EOI or ROI, because it's not a full-time job. Internship is not considered a full-time employment, and it should not be used for employment claim, experience years claim. So let's take up the next one. Is from Mohit Sharma. That what is the possibilities of industrial pharmacists to get invites, and how much points and for which state? So I think we have talked about the pharmacists, retail, hospital, industrial pharmacists. That last financial year it was good, but for this financial year, it has been slowed. But for next financial year, maybe you have a good chance of invite for industrial pharmacies at 85 points for 190. But the competition will be very high because a lot of people are waiting already. So now let's take up the next question. Is from Raghu. Raghu is asking that NSW and Victoria have not mentioned that they need work experience to be invited. Yes, you are right. So NSW and Victoria, they have an unsaid rule or an unsaid prioritization mechanism that they are prioritizing the applicants where the work experience points are higher or the partner's skilled occupation has contributed the points. Similarly, Victoria is also prioritizing the applicants having superior English. Now, these rules are not mentioned anywhere in their criteria or in their mechanism to invite the candidates. But yes, they have a lot of applicants to choose from, and they have a new for example, you can consider that they are filtering the applicants or EOIs or ROIs where the people have such criterias or such unsaid rules checked. So yes, it's you can say that it's a different or strange thing that they are inviting the people for who have higher work experience points, even if their total EOI points are lower in the case of NSW. So let's take up the next one is from Maiman Zuhaib. So question is that if I got both assessment one from TRA as general fitter with 8 years of experience and second from EA with less than 2 years, how I will submit my EOIs, whether I submit all states with both occupations. So if you have got two skills assessments, separate occupations, you can submit separate EOIs for those two occupations. For NSW, yes. For Victoria, no. Because Victoria doesn't allow more than one single ROI. For Queensland, you need to submit one EOI only. For South Australia, again, you need to have only one single EOI submitted, so you cannot go with both occupations there as well. For Western Australia, yes, you can submit multiple EOIs. And similarly, for ACT, Canberra matrix, you can submit multiple EOIs and Canberra matrix for each of the occupations. These are for the major states. So let's take up the next one is from Uzair Shah. The question is that what are the chances for mechanical engineer at 85 points for 190 for Victoria and NSW? I think we have already covered the chances of mechanical engineer. And for 85 points, you have good chances, but I would suggest you to submit EOI for Queensland as well at 85 points for 190 for better chances of invite for mechanical engineer. Now let's take up the next one is from Gisop. Is asking visa application for 491 asks for 10-year employment detail before the date of invitation. If after invitation, new job is unrelated to skilled employment, can we not show the job in visa application? So if you have already been invited and you are going to apply for the visa of 491, you just need to follow the details you have mentioned in your EOI, because your EOI points and the detail of the employment in your EOI is what matters. You do not need to change anything with respect to the employment or with respect to addition of any skilled employment, which is either related or not related to occupation, which is post your final invite. You just need to prove and provide all the evidence related to the employment claimed in your EOI and nothing after that. You can give the details of your ongoing current employment, but you do not need to give the details about the anything unrelated to skilled employment, because you do not need to mess up your visa application. So let's take up the next one. Is from Temo. Can you please brief about the documents for combined visa? Temo, I'm not sure which visa you are asking about, but we are going to upload or share a video about the guidance of submitting a visa application and the details of the list of documents required or the things to keep in mind while applying for visa on our YouTube channel. So you will be soon watching our video about the visa application guideline. So stay tuned to that. On that note, I would like to mention one thing, that at the end of this session, today's live session, last 5 to 10 minutes, I will talk about a special program of Western Australia's construction visa subsidy program. So for the applicants who have already got the invitation from Western Australia for either 190 and 491, you need to understand the CVSP program because it could be beneficial for you in terms of the financial support. And also, we are going to talk a little bit about the next year's financial program and next year's nomination program and how the states are going to behave in next year. So stay tuned till the end of this session, the end of this live question and answer session, because it will be beneficial for everyone who are expecting an invite from now until next financial year. So let's take up the next question is from Dhirasha. The question is that, is my wife eligible for a childcare educator assessment with an engineering background, 6 months of local experience and a certificate 3 in childcare, followed by work experience in childcare? Well, if you're asking about early childhood educator or early childhood teacher, then these credentials will not work, because for early childhood teaching occupations skills assessment, which is done by AITSL, you need to have at least 1 year of initial teaching education qualification as part of your total bachelor's or master's program. And along with that, you need to have 45 days of supervised teaching practice certificate from your educational institute. Other than that, it's not possible to apply for skills assessment as early childhood teacher to AITSL. So with you need to work on the qualification of your wife if you want to become eligible for early childhood teacher education occupation skills assessment from AITSL. So now let's take up the next one is from Shiva. It's the question is that I have applied for 190 visa in ACT on April 2023. When do I get my visa approval? What do they look to approve? So I think you have applied in April 2023. You should expect in 12 months in April 2024 for 190 visa from. It doesn't depend a lot. Actually, it doesn't depend upon the state. It depends upon the department's own workload. So what they do is they prioritize the visa applications which are related to priority occupations, healthcare, and education, and they process those. And then during those times, they pick up the applications which are related to non-priority occupations, and then they obviously check all the details and the documents which you have provided and verify with other embassies, and they also verify your employment if they want. So these are the things which they do during the visa application processing. So now let's take up the next one. It's from Asad. The question is that, what are the chances for 491 visa approval for electrical engineer visa lodged in November 23? Again, I think you should expect in 12 months, not before that, for your 491 visa approval. Now let's take up the next one. Uh, it's from Ronak Sachdev. The question is that, does NSW ask more work documents in case of any pre-invite approval nomination? Missed adding one document. Yes. So yes, it is possible that if one of the key documents is missed in your nomination application after you have received the invite from NSW, they can definitely ask for additional documentary evidence. They do not straight away refuse or reject the nomination application, but it's always good and it's always safe to send an email to NSW Migrations official email address with your case number or reference number of your application or nomination application, and then also you can add that missing document in the email and explain your situation just to be on safe side. But obviously they can also ask about that. So now let's take up the next question. It's from Man. The question is that, electrical engineer with 80 points for SC 190, chances for pre-invite in this FY. I think I have already covered that. For electrical engineers, the chances of invite for 190 are good at 85 points, not below that, because of the competition. The electrical engineers, civil engineers, mechanical engineers all should have more than 85 or at least 85 points for 190 for any better chances. For civil engineers are the most competitive occupation, but electrical and mechanical can get pre-invite even in this FY in last couple of rounds at 85 points. So let's take up the next one. It's from Uzair Shah. So Uzair Shah is asking, why aren't we seeing any mechanical related invites? Any chance we see more for the coming rounds? Yes, again, as I mentioned, it depends upon your points. It depends upon your work experience profile, and obviously the points in the EOI. For mechanical engineers, the chances of invite are good at 85 points. And Queensland has invited mechanical engineers at 85 points. When we talk about the offshore applicants, a lot of invitations for mechanical engineers at 85 points from Queensland for 190. So now let's take up the next one. It's from Ali Heather Shah. As a telecom engineer with 7 years of experience and a master's degree in project management plus PMP, which profession offers better skill assessment opportunities? Planning for assessment soon. So Ali Heather, the you should get your skills assessment based on your qualification, which is telecom engineer. Now, the telecom engineer related occupations are can be telecommunications engineer, telecommunications network engineer, telecommunications network planner. You should go for telecommunications engineer. Simple, that is the broader category. Now, this occupation has got invited in this financial year at 85 points. Now, you have 7 years of experience. It doesn't matter you have a master's in project management with PMP, because your base degree, which is telecommunications engineer, and your work experience is related to your telecommunications engineering field of study, then you should go for telecommunications engineer's occupation. That would be a good occupation to select for your skills assessment. Okay, so let's take up the next one. It's from Imtiaz Liaquat, and the question is that what are the chances of civil engineer at 90 points for 491, 190 without experience points? Now, Imtiaz, your points are good for sure at 90 points for 491, but the chances of invite depend upon your work experience profile as well. Since you do not have any work experience in your EOI, or if you have at least that much of work experience from offshore related to your field of study, related to your skills assessment occupation, that you should mention in your EOI, if even if you are not claiming any points for that, for have any better chances. But again, as I mentioned, that the civil engineer is very highly competitive occupation, so good chances of invite start from 95 points for 491. Now let's take up the next one. It's from Talha Ivan. Talha Ivan is asking, I got student visa refusal. Is it wise to lodge again for student visa? Refusal reason was political unrest and loose ties. I am a fresh graduate, no gap. Any recommendations will be appreciated. Okay. So Talha, so Australia has high refusal rate in, as we see in the last few months for the students. It mainly depends upon your GTE approval. So we have seen that Australia is using GTE case or GTE approvals or refusals as a tool to refuse the student visas in order to reduce their temporary visa holders as part of their overall migration strategy. Now, you can obviously submit the student visa again. That's not a big deal, but you need to see the points which they have given you related to the refusal. If it is about the genuine temporary entrant, and the genuine temporary entrant case is not good enough, you need to work on your GTE file in a way that you need to show strong family ties back to your home country, or strong ties with respect to your engagement over here, or your investments over here, or your any commercial terms over here, which can prove that you will be coming back after completing your studies, or you will be a genuine temporary entrant. So the GTE approval is the key for student visa. You can apply again if you can improve your GTE. So now let's take up the next one. It's from Umair Samad. The question is that I am at the stage of skills assessment, and by May 2024, I will lodge EOI. Occupation is mechanical engineer with 90 for 190 and 35 age and experience 8 years. So Umair, your profile is very good, to be honest. 90 points are very good for mechanical engineers at for 190. But since you are planning to lodge in your EOI in the month of May for the, I'm sure you will be submitting EOIs for all the states in which your occupation is applicable. You should be hopeful in next financial year for any invite, because in May most of the states will be closed because of the exhaustion of their allocations quota. So you should be hopeful as at 90 points for 190 as mechanical engineer, because you have got 8 years of experience, and you must have got superior level of English, as I can see from your total points. So you should be hopeful to get an invite in next financial year. So let's take up the next one. Is from Hossam. The question is that in EOI we selected the partner has no skills assessment, but yes for nominated occupations, got 0 points. Now in lodge, but documents to provide for ME for partner. You can simply provide your partner's education documents and any work experience reference if you want, but it's not mandatory to provide that because you haven't claimed any partner skills assessment points in your EOI. You do not need to prove any or provide any uh, positive skills assessment of your partner skills. That's the rule. But you can provide the educational or work experience reference letters of your partner's skill, as you mentioned yes for nominated occupation of your partner in your EOI without claiming points. Now let's take up the next one. It's from Sachini. Sachini is asking how about the chances and demand for ICT quality assurance engineer on 491 with 85 points. So for 491 and 85 points for ICT QA engineer, I'm not sure that it will have high chances because mainly the point is that the ICT, the core or the top three or four occupations within the ICT sector includes the software engineers, developer programmers, ICT business analysts, ICT support engineers, and ICT security specialists, and even computer network and systems engineer are good occupations to have. But ICT QA engineer, I believe that you need to have at least 95 points for 491 for any better chances, because otherwise the competition is very, very high for ICT professionals. Now let's take up the next one. It's from Rizwan Kader. For PTE test, what should we write? Test taker ID or registration ID? You can write registration ID of your PTE in your EOI. Now let's take up the next one. Organization and method analyst. Chances for 491 at 85 points, 190 at 75 points offshore. Organization and method analyst is non-priority occupation, to be honest, and it's not of a high demand. So the chances at 85 points for 491 and 75 points for 190 are not much. You need to improve your points for this occupation's chances, because there are a very, very limited seats for such occupations which here are very low in demand. You can also submit a Canberra matrix for organization and method analyst for ACT and check how much scores you are getting in Canberra matrix. There it can have a better chance, or maybe NSW can have a better chance, but otherwise the chances are not much at 85 points for 491. So the next question is from Vakas Chauhan. The question is that how many points are enough for chemist to get invited? So Vakas, for chemist, 85 points would be good for 190. I believe that for chemist, it's a good occupation to have, but the chances of invite, I believe that the would be very low if you have 80 or 8 any points below that. So 85 would be a good threshold to consider for chemist's occupation. So let's take up the next one. It's from McLary's. The question is that I submitted my UI for Western Australia in June 2023 under graduate stream for 190. As veterinary nurse, should I move? Well, if you are a graduate from Western Australia, you should stay in Western Australia, because Western Australia really prioritizes and prefers the applicants or EOIs which are from graduate stream. So yeah, it depends upon your points, which you haven't mentioned. But if you have good points, as you can see from the Western Australia's last two rounds report, that at what points they invited your occupation. So if you think that you are having the similar points at which they invited your occupation in previous rounds, you should stay in Western Australia, because they are prioritizing the graduate stream applicants for their next invitation rounds. But obviously you need to wait for their next financial year now, because they are closed. So next one is from Zaki Afridi. The question is that how about an early childhood teacher, and what is the best date for the invitation? Now, if you are an early childhood teacher, you can submit an EOI for any of the states, including 189 for federal invite, for the final invite from the federal government, and you can get an invite even at 65 points for 190 or for 491 or for 189. Now, early childhood teacher is a very, very high priority occupation within the education sector. So if you can go for that, for the best state for the invitation, I believe that all the states are best for the invitation. Specifically, Victoria and NSW and 189 itself is also very good for the early childhood teachers' chances of invite. Now let's take up the next one. Now the next one is from Ali Heather Shah, for my wife, a computer system engineer with 4+ years in the field, working as an application consultant. Which profession offers better chances of for skills assessment invitation? I think computer systems. When we talk about computer system, now it depends upon the JDs. For to it can I cannot qualify which occupation can be possible with this experience, but maybe computer network and systems engineer is a possible occupation, or ICT support engineer can be a possible occupation. Both of these are good occupations to have. Now let's take up the next one. It's from Numan Ali. Any change expected in points based system? Yes, it's a good question, Numan. So currently, they are not going to change anything with respect to the EOI points test system. Now, we have already shared a video about the new migration strategy and what they are going to do with respect to the new point system. And we are sharing the information in our group as well with respect to the possible changes with respect to the points test system. In their migration system reforms proposal, they have mentioned that they are going to abolish certain criteria such as regional study 5 points, 5 points for translator NATI course, but they haven't mentioned anything that when they are going to do that. It's part of their future reforms, but they will be if they will be doing anything, they will be doing in next financial year. Maybe by the end of this calendar year in December, they will be announcing anything with respect to the changes for the points test system. But it's going to take a lot of time to make all these changes in their policy system, in their immigration standard operating procedures, and then to make these changes happen in their IT network and infrastructure, which is working to for all this EOI invite based systems. Now, I believe that nothing is going to be changed before January 2025. Now let's take up the next question, which is again from Numan. Numan, I will turn 40 on 30th of March, and I am at 65 marks of 189. So my marks will be reduced to 55 on 31st of March. So what should I do? Well, if your age points are going to drop on 30th of March, then you do not have any option then to improve the points from other criteria. For example, you can work on your English language points. You can work on your criteria such as NATI, or if you can go onshore on a student visa, then obviously you have a more potential to increase points. You can have points from your partner's skills assessment or English language points, and from your work experience. You cannot do anything about age for sure. So once your points are dropped by 10, once you have turned 40, then you need to work on the other possibilities of increasing your points to have better chances. Now let's take up the next one. It's from Numan Ali again. What are the series of steps? Okay, so what are the series of steps after EOI submission to final grant? How long it may take? I submitted EOI on 20th of January. So what should I expect? I expected. Okay, so Numan, the process is very simple. That first you need to submit an EOI after getting your skills assessment done and English language test done, and then you need to wait for a pre-invite from any of the states. And in the case of 189, you will be getting a final invite. Once you receive a pre-invite from any of the states, you apply for their nomination. And once nomination is approved, you get a final invite to apply for the visa. Once you have applied for the visa, along with all the documents, along with all the medical examinations and police clearance checks and health checks, everything is done, then you just need to wait for the grant. So that's how overall the summary of the process works. Now let's take up the next one. Is from Abhinav is asking, I have 90 points for 189, 95 points for 190 for occupation software engineer and developer programmer. Is there any chance for me for this financial year? Yes, I believe you should be getting an invite. To be honest, 95 points for 190 for developer programmer is a very good profile and very good chance. So you should stay hopeful with your profile. If even if you are not getting any pre-invite in this financial year, the next financial year it can be your turn. So let's take up the next one. It's from anymore. Is the question is that lodged 491 in November 2022 offshore with the changes in processing times and uncertain granting criteria. When can I expect grant? Well, to be honest, 90% of the applications are being granted for 491 in 18 months. So before that, you cannot do anything. So right now you are somewhere between 14 or 15 months. So just wait for another 3 or 4 months. Hopefully, you will be getting invited. I am sure there. It all depends upon the S56 or additional documentation request during that journey from the visa lodgement until now. That how much your case was complicated. If it was not complicated and you have provided all the details along the way, then you should be getting in the grant in 3 or 4 months, hopefully. So now let's take up the next one. It's from Muhammad Umar. I have just joined. I wanted to ask, is there any chances for ND nomination for management accountants or financial managers? Please advise in broader aspect to get success. So management accountants and financial managers or finance managers for Northern Territory nomination. So Northern Territory, well, first of all, they have already closed their nomination program for this year. So you first need to wait for their next financial year's nomination program. What criteria they are going to change for offshore or onshore applicants. So with that perspective, I think in the month of June or July they will be announcing their new migration program after getting the allocations from federal government, and then the chances of invite for management accountants or finance managers can be better assessed. So just wait for that time before getting anything assessed. So let's take up the next one is from Zain Ali, electrical engineer, moved to NSW in December, points around 80. Any chances for in 190? Well, you have if you have moved to NSW in December, you have to wait for at least 6 months in NSW to be eligible for 190 nomination. So because NSW, one of the criteria to approve the nomination by NSW is that the applicant must be living in NSW from past 6 months and continuously living so you need to wait for 6 months for any chances of getting nomination approved. But as far as your points are concerned, well, to be honest, electrical engineers with 80 points, I'm not sure. The chances are low for that because of the competition. If you can go up to 85 or more points, then the chances could be better. But at 80 points, the chances are, to be honest, not high. And now let's take up the next one. I think the new point system, we have already covered this topic. For the retail pharmacist, we have already covered the retail pharmacist possibility or chances of invite for this financial year as compared to the last financial year. University lecturer, we have already covered. And now let's take up the next one. Again, ICT occupations, we have already covered. So we can quickly take up this question of Sebkatullah, that living in NSW with 105 points for 491 and 95 points for 190 and for 90 points for 189. We have two assessments, software tester and developer programmer. We are waiting for last 2 years. I don't have a job in NSW with skilled partner and living in NSW. So your points are for sure good, but since you do not have a job in NSW, that's the only drawback in your profile or EOI. If you can get on a skilled employment in NSW, then obviously your chances can be better because only you do not have a work experience, current employment in your nominated occupation. That's why you haven't been invited yet. But for developer programmer at 95 points for 190 and for 491 at 105 points, the chances are for sure good, but you just need to find a good job in your closely related occupation that could work. So now let's take up the next one. It's from Ray Chang. I would like to ask any chances for ICT security specialist. 85 points for 190 and 95 points for 491, no experience points. Well, without experience points, again, the chances will remain low, but your points are good, so you should stay hopeful as ICT security specialist because ICT security specialist itself is part of the top 5 ICT sectors occupations. So stay hopeful with that. So now let's take up the next one from Umar Rafi. So Umar Rafi is asking, what changes are you expecting in the April or new financial year, positive and negative impact? Well, Department of Home Affairs has recently published a document in which they have analyzed their migration program of last 5 or 6 years and compared that to the current half of the year. And in that program, it is quite evident that the allocations for sure are reduced for skilled migration visas. And similarly, the student visas and other temporary visas were issued very less in this financial year. And only the previous financial year's program backlog was catered in this financial year's planning levels. Now, in my opinion, the changes with respect to the skilled migration program for the next financial year will remain positive, but the changes with respect to the temporary visas and temporary visa programs, such as student visas or the other work visas, which are related to temporary, what we also call job seeker visas, such cases will remain a challenge, and the negative impact can be considered for such temporary cases. Now, when we talk about the other cases, for example, employer sponsored visas, now the Department of Home Affairs is actually prioritizing the applicants who are applying for any employer sponsored visa where the employer is working in a regional based area. So if there is a regional employer and if you get a nomination from that employer, then that is the top priority of department for to process the application. So overall, when I see that the next year could be good for skilled migrations, employer sponsored, but not good for the temporary visa applications. Now let's take up the next one, that how much bank statements are required for 189, 190, and 491, and how the proof of funds are verified. Well, there are two types of bank statements requirements. So number one is that you have to provide the bank statement to prove your employment years, where the bank statement should show your salary transactions. Now the second type is about the funds declaration or settlement funds declaration for some of the states. Now there are three states which require settlement funds declaration either through bank statement or your assets declaration. Number one is ACT, number two is NT, and number three is Queensland. Now, Queensland has given on their websites the clear funds declaration requirement for onshore and offshore applicants as per the number of applicants. So, for that purpose, you must be submitting the bank statement to prove the assets and the liquid cash part as per their requirement during the nomination. So once you have got a pre-invited from these three states, you have to provide the settlement funds declaration along with the evidence of bank statement and asset certificate or valuation certificates. For that purpose, the proof of funds are verified through the third-party valuation certificates. And the bank statement itself is enough proof if you get the statement from your bank's official channel or official letterhead. E-statement should be avoided in such cases. Now let's take up the next one. It's from Mubin Ahmed. My wife has done Masters of Business in Human Capital Management from Monash in 2017, and she has 3 years plus experience in HR. What are the chances and which body will assess the credentials? Well, the VET assess will assess the credentials of human resource manager, or sorry, not for the human resource advisor, and for the human resource manager you can get your skills assessment done from Institute of Managers and Leaders, IML. But both of these occupations are, to be honest, not in high demand, and the people are actually waiting for long for these occupations chances. With 3+ years of experience in Pakistan, it means the offshore experience, only 5 points will be contributed to EOI. And if you do not add up a total of 95 points for 491, the chances of invite will remain low for a human resource advisor occupation. So keep that in mind while pursuing your case. Now let's take up the next one, and it's from Merlin. So Merlin is asking, hi sir, onshore software engineer, and I have applied my UI for NSW 491 and NSW 190 this month. Are there any chance of getting the pre-invite this year? Well, no partner points. Okay. So Merlin, software engineer is for sure a very, very good occupation, but is same as civil engineers in the engineering occupations, software engineer in the ICT sector is the highest competitive occupation, and there are like thousands of EOIs waiting at 85 or 95 points for 190 and 491 in the skill select EOI dashboard data. You need to be competitive, you need to have higher points to for any possible chances of invite for software engineer. Otherwise you should get another skills assessment done either as ICT business analyst or ICT security specialist if your JDs can match to them, or developer programmer. Software engineer is super saturated. You are onshore. If you are working in your nominated occupation, then your chances will be bright at 80 plus 15 points for 491 for NSW. Now let's take up the next one is from Khan. So if we got a permanent job, for example, skill level 4 with 50K package, what do we need to mention in Victoria ROI Will it be zero? Well, yes. So Victoria ROI, the rule, if you go to the website of Live in Melbourne, you will see there is a tool called Annual Earnings Estimation Guidelines. In that tool, you will see that they have clearly mentioned that you can only claim the annual earnings from the jobs which are from skill level 1, 2, or 3. So in that case, your ROI will mention zero as annual earnings for Victoria ROI if your occupation or your job is skill level 4. So now let's take up the next one is from Apurbo Saha for marketing specialist minimum score what? Okay, so to be honest, the marketing specialists are actually getting invited by NSW. A lot of marketing specialists are invited by NSW, even offshore applicants at 80 points. So if you have 80 or minimum 80 points for 190 for NSW or even for Victoria, you should be hopeful. Marketing specialist is a high demand occupation within NSW. So now let's move to the next one is from Muhammad Amir Ali Khan. I am a civil engineer living in Melbourne, relocating to Brisbane as I got a job as a trainer and assessor in a vet college by teaching to diploma. I have 80 points for 190. I will be living and teaching in Brisbane. Uh, okay, so I cannot see your question, but obviously it's a good case if you are getting a job of teaching in a vet college, and while doing so, you are moving to Brisbane. So you will become eligible for Queensland in that case, as you will be submitting an UI for Queensland as a working employee, as a working candidate of Queensland with 80 points for 491. So that could obviously help in your profile. So good luck for that. So let's take up the next one. And this is from Okay, so this is from Nadisha. Nadisha is asking what are the chances for statistician. So statistician. Okay, I can just confirm you one thing. So statisticians is obviously not a high priority occupation, number one. But when we see that uh, in a recent invitation round, statisticians were invited at 90 points. So I just checked from our records that Victoria invited statistician for 190 at 90 points, the offshore applicant in their January 30th round. So that's the cutoff for you to target. So now let's take up the next one is from Anchal Thakur. What about painting trades workers in Victoria at 85 points for 491 living and working in regional Victoria? Well, trades workers are getting invited in Victoria, but 85 points for 491. I'm not sure if you are working in living and working in regional Victoria. Then, if your annual earnings are good and mentioned in your ROI, then you should stay hopeful at 85 points for 491. Trades are actually being encouraged in Victoria. So good luck for that. So let's take up the next one is from uh, Divas. So Divas is asking my point is 70 before state nomination or any other nomination points. Will with nomination it will be 75 for 189, 190, 85. Okay. A mechanical engineer option. Yes. So if your base points are 70, you will get extra 5 points for 190 nomination once it's approved, and you will get 15 extra points from for 491 once it's approved by the respective state. So that's how the EOI points test system works. Now, quickly, I will talk about one thing that by the end of this session, in last 5 to 10 minutes, I will talk about two things. Number one, the news or the updates about the next financial year's program and how the states are going to behave in the next financial years as per the trend of this financial year. Number two, we are going to talk about the Western Australia CVSP construction visa subsidy program. So for those of you who have been invited by Western Australia through their SNMP nomination program, then you should stay tuned till end of the session, and I will be communicating good information about you. So now let's take up the next one. It's from Ali Heather Shah that please confirm if the latest invitation for a telecommunications engineer requiring 85 points was issued under the 491 or 190 visa category. I'm currently on 80 points without including state points. Well, the telecommunications engineers were invited at 85 points for 190 in the latest recent invitation round. So you also have 85 points for 190 as telecommunications engineer. So you should stay hopeful. with that. Now let's take up the next one. It's from um, okay, so it's from Michelle. The question is that completed graduate studies in Aussie and now postgraduate studies in early childhood and finish it in November 24. What advice, what to do and when and where? Well, once you are done with your early childhood education, postgraduate studies, you should get your skills assessment done from AITSL based on your early childhood education postgraduate diploma along with 45 days STP certificate. And once you are done with IELTS academic with 7788 scores, it's a very good occupation to have. Once you are have completed your studies from the same state, in the same state, you can submit an EOI as ECT occupation, and you should target to have at least 8 each in IELTS academic so that you can get 20 points from English and then add up more than then and add up to more than 70 or 75 points as ECT occupation. Then you have a good chance of invite as ECT. So now let's take up the next one. It's from Zaki Afridi. Now, it's a very similar question to which I just mentioned to Michelle. That what if I apply for an EY in early childhood teacher after 1 year? Will it be in the priority list? Yes. All the school teaching occupations, including early childhood teacher, secondary school teacher, and primary school teacher, and also some of the specialist education, specialist school teachers will remain in priority next financial year as well. And same goes for the healthcare. It will remain in the priority sector as compared to other occupations. Now, Michelle is asking, already put in 118 and 190 for accountant graduate. Do I have to put new EOI for early childhood? Yes, once your education is completed for your early childhood education and you are done with other skills assessment, and then you can submit your EOI for 118 and 190 separately, but it depends upon the state you are residing. If your state allows multiple EOIs, only then you can submit multiple EOIs. If your state doesn't allow multiple EOI submission, then obviously you will have to choose one of the occupations. And for sure, early childhood teacher occupation is better than accountant occupation when we talk about the priority occupations. Now, let's take up the next one. It's from Muhammad Ehsanul Haq. Hello, I have 85 points as mechanical engineer for 190 doing spouse skill assessment as physiotherapist, but it will be ready by end June. Will I stand a chance by then in this financial year? Well, first of all, you all should be well aware and you should understand one thing, that this financial year, although the financial year is going to close in June, but the allocations and the nomination program of all the states will close in the month of April or May max. They will be closing their year internally in the month of June, and then they will be initiating their next year in the month of July. So there will be a break of good 2 months. So if you are improving your points in the month of June, then you should be expecting a positive outcome or result of that improved EOI in the month of July, not before that, in next financial year. Because you already have got good points, but obviously by improving the 5 points from your spouse skill assessment, then the chances of invite will become better in next financial year as mechanical engineer. So good luck for that. Now let's take up the next one. And this is from Devas. Devas is asking that, okay. So your question is broken down into multiple sentences. So here this is. My point is 70, but before state nomination, as I have already mentioned you that the point, how the point test system works. With 3 years experience, which visa category has more chances for me? Again, if your total points, and as a mechanical engineer, you should have 85 points for 190 and 95 points for 191. So you can select on this basis. And then you have mentioned about, also in mechanical engineer, I am into medical device industry, which is itself a high priority in Australia. I believe I have experience working in US medical device industry. Well, Devas, it doesn't depend upon the industry. It depends more on your occupation's priority. So your occupation is mechanical engineer. Your occupation is not directly related to healthcare. Your industry is related to healthcare, which is can be a high priority industry, but your occupation is not a high priority occupation. So you should have 85 points for 190 or 95 points for 491 for any better chances as mechanical engineer. Please also suggest which states which I submit EOI for which visa category. For mechanical engineers, NSW Queensland and Victoria are good states to submit EOI for any better chances. So now let's take up the next one from Devas, that also, do I need to take agent's help or can I submit EOI by myself? So well, submitting an EOI is not a difficult thing, to be honest. Once you are done with your skills assessment and you are done with your English language result, you can submit an EOI on Skill Select by creating an EOI account. It just requires you to fill a form of all the details which you have got from your skills assessment result card, from your English language result card. But if you find it difficult, because there are certain questions, there are certain parameters in the EOI which are technical in nature, you can always ask your questions in our Facebook group. Also, even in that case, you cannot understand and you find it difficult to submit an EOI, you can take help from agents. That's up to you. EOI submission is not difficult, but obviously the stages next to the EOI submission, for example, nomination application of a state or the visa application to Department of Home Affairs, that could be technical or that could be challenging for some, for the complicated cases. In those steps, you can take help from agents. But for EOI itself, it's better if you can understand it well from online resources and do it yourself. Now, let's take up the next one is from uh, so the question is about that when 189 round is going to happen in this FY. So as we have seen that Department of Home Affairs has only conducted a single 189 round in this financial year, that was happened in the month of December. They invited only the priority occupations which are related to, mainly related to healthcare, and then a few from the education sector, and they didn't invite a single applicant of non-priority occupation. But there is a lot of allocations quota left for 189 for this financial year, although that is being used to process the visa count from the previous financial year. So I believe there could be another round of 189 in the month of April or May, but not sure that whether they will include the non-priority occupations in it or not. So let's see how they announce in their upcoming publish documents in news, whether there will be another 189 round or not, but it is predicted that it will happen in this financial year, one more. So now let's take up the next one is from Vipin Matthew. What is happening with NT visa applicants not seeing that much visa outcomes from NT nominated visas? Now, uh, for those of you who have applied their NT nominated visas, it doesn't depend upon the state. So if you have already applied for your visa, now the visa application has gone to Department of Home Affairs, which is a central federal body of Australia, who is entertaining and processing all the visa applications coming from all the states, including 189. Now it doesn't depend upon the NT's nomination. It depends upon your occupation's priority, whether you will get a visa granted quickly or it can take longer than expected, or it can even take longer than the overall global processing time of that visa subclass. So you cannot blame the state itself. You can wait for your turn from the Department of Home Affairs outcome for your visa grant. So let's take up the next one is from Devas. Again, sir, suggest as an offshore candidate, mechanical engineer with 70 points, what chances do I have? I think I have already covered that for civil engineers. Number one, you should have 90 points for 190 and 100 points for 491 if you want to have high hopes of getting invited. For mechanical and electrical engineers, you should have 85 points for 190 and 95 points for 491 with high hopes of chances. And for other engineering occupations, such as telecommunications engineer, again the same level as mechanical and electrical engineers. But when we talk about priority occupations, such as early childhood teacher or registered nurse, such occupations are getting invited even at 65 or 70 points for 190. So that's the stark difference between the two occupational groups, priority and not priority. And that indicates that how the Australia's economy is struggling with respect to the professions of healthcare and education. Now, obviously, there are a lot of economic indicators which say that the engineers also are in high demand and are in shortage in Australia in certain states, but it depends upon the comparison of occupational groups between the priority and non-priority when it comes to the state nomination programs. So we hope that it will become smoothen in the next financial year. So for it will be better for other occupations, the non-priority ones. Now let's take up the next one. It's from Asif Mumtaz. What are the chances of mechanical engineers? I think we have covered, and you are asking about 491 family sponsored WA or other states. So, well, family sponsored has a different scheme of selection of applicants. Now, if you go for 80 points for 491 family sponsors, first of all, you need to understand for family sponsored, there is very small quota available with Department of Home Affairs along with 189. So if we have seen one invitation round only for 491 family sponsored this year, along with 189, they conducted a small for family sponsored invitations, which are 75, around 75 EOIs were selected from the family sponsored 491 visa subclass. Now, you should better be focused towards for skilled state nominated 491 EOI rather than family sponsored, because it's not going to be moving at a higher pace as compared to state nominated. So so good luck with state nomination, but I'm not sure whether you will be able to get a family sponsored 491. Now let's take up the next one, and this is up from Chris Matthew. What are the chances of computer network and systems engineer with 75 points in 491? Well, computer, as I mentioned earlier, that computer network and systems engineer comes in like top 6 or 7 occupations of ICT sector. But these are not, but this is not like top occupation of ICT sector. Top occupation of ICT sector is straight away software engineers, developer programmers, ICT business analyst, and ICT security specialist. But computer network and systems engineers is a good occupation if you have 95 points for 491. Chances are low at 75 points for 491. So you need to work on your points if you can to improve your chances. Again, for electrical engineers, I think we have already discussed good chances of invite start from 95 points for 491. So, Praneeth, the chances of invite for 491 at 90 points are not enough for electrical engineer. If you are lucky enough, if you have higher work experience points and superior in English, then you can be lucky enough to get 90 points for 491. Now let's take up the now let's take up a few last questions, because I have to wrap up the today's session with a good note about the people who have got invited from Western Australia for 190 and 491 and for the next financial year's update. So I will be taking a few more questions before wrapping up. So the next question is from Muhammad Ehsanul Haq, sir. Being primary applicant as mechanical engineer, I have 85 points, and spouse as primary applicant physiotherapist 75 points. What should be my strategy? Well, if you both have your skills assessment and English language test done, and you have 85 points and your wife has 75 points as physiotherapist, you should both apply and submit EOI separately as primary applicants along with your secondary applicants points. Now I believe both of you have good chances, because you will have good chances at 85 plus 5 points as mechanical engineer from Queensland and New South Wales, whereas your spouse can have good chances as primary applicant of physiotherapist at 75 plus 5 points from Victoria and from New South Wales. And also you can think about submitting EOI for Western Australia and in ACT. Now you together, if you submit your EOIs as primary and primary applicant, then it can maximize your chances. So go for it. Now let's take up the next one. It's from Sadaf Zahra. Sir, what are the chances of university lecturer with 85 points for 189 this financial year? Well, I think we have already covered the topic of university lecturer. The chances of invite are very good, to be honest, at 85 points, but it all depends upon their selection criteria, whether they are going to include your occupation, university lecturer, in their next round or not of 189. Because we have seen in the last round that in 189's round that they didn't include any other occupation than school teachers or healthcare professions. So let's hope if they will include all the occupations holistically in their next 189 invitation round, then obviously you will have a better chance of invite at 85 points for university lecturer. Now let's take up the next one is from Bilal Sultan. If there will be no 189 round, how they will exhaust their quota? What will be criteria for issuing it for previous year's visa application in that case? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the overall planning levels quota is around 30,000 number of visas for 189 in this financial year. They have issued around 8,300 invites in the last December's round of for 189. Now, it depends upon them whether they want to use the 100% of the quota or not, or they want to conduct another invitation round or not, which I believe will happen in the month of April or May. It can be another short round of 7 to 8,000 invites, but rest of the quota they will use to process the visa applications of 189 which were invited in last financial year. They have enough applications in their system which are still waiting for grants. So that's how they will be using their overall 189 invitation round, 189 invitation quota. So now let's take up a couple of more questions before wrapping up. And the next question is from Yasser Munir. How many points required for community pharmacist? Well, again, I think we have covered the pharmacist topic a lot, that retail and hospital and industrial pharmacists all required all require around 85 or more points for any better chances for 189 or 190. In this case, sorry, 190 only, because pharmacists are STSOL and not eligible for 189. So 85 is the cutoff for good chances of invite. Now, I think I can take another question from okay, so Michelle is asking, what other visas should I lodge to get maximum charge from early childhood postgraduate study, since better than accounting? Okay, once you are done with early childhood teacher postgraduate study, you should get your skills assessment done immediately as ECT occupation, and submit your EOIs for all the states, for the states where you are, number one, for the state you are currently residing in, and for all the visa subclasses. Now, the good chances of invite for ECT start from 65 points for 189, 70 points for 190, and 75 or 80 points for 491. If you can get up to 70 points for 190, you should submit an EOI for your own residing state for 190. Now, let's take up one more question, and then I will go to the closing notes about the Western Australia's CVSP program and about the next year's update. Now, one question is from Zaki Afridi. Is it good if I do a job in ECT while studying the course for better chances, or after the completion of the course? Well, during the studies, if you are doing any job, that will not be claimable in your EOI. So you should first complete your studies in ECT and then get your skills assessment done from AITSL based on their criteria, and then post completion or post qualification, whatever your employment will be, you can only claim that employment in your EOI. And obviously, as currently employed in the nominated occupation, you will have a higher chances of invite as early childhood teacher. With that note, I will move to the closing note. First of all, thank you. I would like to thank everyone who have joined today's live question and answer session, and thanks to everyone who have been part of our Facebook group and our other social media networks, our other social media channels, and who have already part of our YouTube subscribers. And it will be great if you guys who are still here can again join and subscribe to our channels and the other social media networks. It will be helpful for us to stay connected and to keep communicating with you through our social media and YouTube videos and content. So let's talk about next financial year's predictions. Well, in my opinion, and as per our experience, and based on our data analysis of this financial year as compared to last financial year, we believe that the Department of Home Affairs, they are trying to do a lot of things which can be considered as political stunt, because they are trying to improve the living conditions in Australia, which has a problem with respect to a more number of temporary workers and temporary migrants in Australia as compared to the facilities. Right now, they are struggling with housing crisis, as we know, and they are struggling with the inflation, and their economy is also being hurt due to the inflation. But having said that, it doesn't mean that this trend is going to stay as it is. We believe that the next financial year will be better for skilled workers who have good work experience, who have uh, even past or current work experience related to the nominated occupation, and also who the if you are married and if you are a couple, then your partner's skilled employment or skilled occupation will also matter. Now we have seen that in certain cases the visa application is getting prioritized in the case where the EOI or where the visa had a skilled partner. Similarly, we have seen the same trend from Victoria and NSW, where they are uh, where the applicant is working or have the applicant has worked previously in the nominated occupation, that is being given a high priority. So this is one of the conditions which will remain consistent throughout the next financial year as well for their invitation rounds of states. When we talk about other preferences, obviously the total EOI points and the points test system will remain the same until at least December of this year. We can expect changes in points test system, but there will not be major changes because Australian government doesn't want to mess up with their own systems, which are currently working fine. Specifically, when we talk about their IT infrastructure, which is working on the background of all these migration system. This will take time for them to migrate from from existing current system to new system. So I think the trend will remain the same, but when we talk about the student visas and other temporary workers or graduate visas or skilled graduate temporary visas which are issued to certain occupations after completion of studies, those will be discouraged. We have already seen a higher refusal rate of student visas in this financial year, and this the main problem of this, the main root cause of this is that the Australian Department of Home Affairs is targeting to reduce the temporary workers in their system. They want either a student should come, complete the studies, move to a post-study work stream, and then from post-study work stream move to an employer-sponsored visa, or either the applicant should go back to the home country. Now they do not want their system to complete to redo the process of renewing the temporary workers. They want either the worker should be converted into a PR or should exit the country. Now the trend for the skilled migrants will remain the same. So if you guys can work on improving your English language points or work experience points, if you guys can improve your work related to nominated occupation, and also if you can work on the skills assessment of your partner, these three will remain high priority criteria which can be considered as unset rules of the states in next financial year as well. So this is what you guys should be focused about. Now let's talk about the Western Australia's construction visa subsidy program quickly. So those of you who have got a state nomination, Western Australia state nomination program invites in this financial year, either 190 or 491. And if your occupation is related to building and construction industry, for example, civil engineers and other trade workers, then you are eligible to apply for Western Australia's CVSP program. Now, construction visa subsidy program is all about support from Western Australia for offshore and onshore applicants who have completed their nomination program, accepted the final invite, and applied for the visa based on Western Australia's SNMP. Now, if you are one of them, you should get yourself registered with SMER. Now, what is SMER? SMER is Skilled Migrant Employment Register. So, if you belong to building and construction industry and you are invited by Western Australia and you have already lodged your visa, you should quickly uh, connect with one of the employers who are related to building and construction industry for sure, and you should register yourself with skilled migrant employment register SMER of Western Australia, and connect with any of the employers and try to find the job in Western Australia once your visa is granted. When your visa will be granted and you have already been employed in Western Australia, with one of the employers related to building and construction industry, you will be given a grant of 10,000 Australian dollars as a support from state, which for offshore applicants, and $5,000 if you are an onshore applicant and moving to Western Australia, as part of their support for the applicants which are in high demand in their state. So Western Australia is having a high demand of building and construction industry. On this topic, we have already shared a video on our YouTube channel, and you can find it as Western Australia CVSP, or Construction Visa Subsidy Program. So if you are one of them, you should watch that video and follow the guidelines provided, all the links provided in the description of that video. With that note, I would like to conclude today's live question and answer session by thanking you all once again. And we believe that it was helpful for you. And we will be coming up again with our next live question and answer session in next month, hopefully by the end of March, with news updates and the trend after adding another month. With that note, I wish you all good luck, and I hope you stay hopeful for this financial year. And for the people who have already got the invites, you can continue your journey towards that final goal of getting a visa application and traveling to Australia. But for those who are still waiting for a pre-invite, good luck to you guys. And I hope you can get your pre-invite soon. With that note, let's leave this live question and answer session with a good note, and see you guys in next month. Good luck.